Hey guys, and welcome back. I have an update for you on the Son Jung-min mystery. The 21-year-old medical student who went missing in the Han River and ended up dead 5 days after he had gone drinking with a friend just at the Riverside Park. And we're still trying to uncover and unravel the mystery and see what part his friend, called Mr. A, had to do with his disappearance or not. So if you want a recap of what's happened, check out the other two videos on the Seoulite.com or on my YouTube channel, and you can get up to speed. But essentially, what we're trying to do is piece together and start narrowing down this timeline to figure out what exactly happened to Son Jung-min, how he got from the grassy knoll area into the water. We've already established that he was still alive when he went into the water. He had breathed in the water because they had found traces of plankton in his lungs, a significant amount, so that shows that he actually was breathing before he went into the water. But we don't know exactly how he got into the water, but we have a very good estimate of what time. So in the last video, we narrowed the timeline down to 3:38 a.m. to 4:20 a.m. At 3:38 a.m., there was an eyewitness who said the two were sitting on the grass at their picnic area and that they were still there. And then at 4:20 a.m., we had a man who was walking by and saw Mr. A alone on the embankment asleep, and he woke him up. Well, that time has been revised from 4:20 to 4:27 a.m. So now we're looking at slightly revised missing time period of 3:38 a.m. to 4:27 a.m. This is the time that we believe that Son Jung-min had gone into the water, or that something happened, because we don't have any eyewitness accounts during this time period. We don't have any CCTV footage, and we don't have an account from Mr. A to explain what happened. He says that he was just sleeping during this time. But now we have a new development that sort of throws this timeline into question. We have a group of fishermen, 7 fishermen. I don't know why they're going to fish in the Han River. I don't know if you want to eat that fish. I don't even know if their fish still lived in the Han River, but with all that Viagra in there, I don't know if you want to eat that. Anyhow, so they went to the Han River Park, and they went to the waterside area, and they said they saw somebody wading into the water, and then when the water got up to his neck, started swimming. So there was 7 people. 5 of them said they directly saw this person go into the water. The other 2 said they heard splashing noises and vocal noises of So that could be like like it could be like really cold. It could be like you're falling. It could be pain. It could be shock. They could not tell exactly for sure if it was a man or a woman because they were 80 meters away. The place that the person went into the water was about 10 meters away from where Mr. A last was found sleeping. The fishermen were 80 meters away. So that was the testimony that they gave to the police that was released recently to the public. But of course, it's not confirmed whether this person that went into the river was Son Jung-min or Mr. A, or anybody related to this case. But what is very interesting is that they settled on this time frame of 4:40 a.m. So remember, we have a timestamp of Mr. A supposedly captured on CCTV leaving the park at 4:32 a.m. So for the people who might have thought that that could have been Mr. A going into the water, according to the eyewitness accounts, and if you believe that that was Mr. A captured on the CCTV footage at 4:32 a.m., that gives him an alibi. Now, who are these fishermen? Why did they wait so long to give their testimony? Can we believe that they were actually there at the park? So the police have been culling through about 150 people of interest in terms of their comings and goings that they were able to capture on CCTV footage and also on black box footage from people's cars. And so it's taken a while for them to go through and contact some of the people they're very interested in hearing from. And so that's why it took a little bit of time for them to get to these 7 fishermen. The 7 fishermen were contacted on May 12th. They were questioned for about 12 hours, and then the information was released a few days after that. The worry is that after you heard about this case, if you have a dog in the fight, maybe you're just going to go and manipulate a story to try to give this guy an alibi. So that's what they're really trying to see. That's what netizens are also suspicious of. But they, according to the fishermen, they were just contacted because the police were getting to them later on as they're going through the list. Now, why didn't the fishermen just report this, say like there's some weird guy that's just like walking into the river right now with his clothes on? It's a little bit weird. They say that, especially at the time, it really wasn't something to report. Like, yeah, it might be a little bit weird for somebody to be going into the river, but it's not unheard of. And especially they said that the guy was so deliberate going in, so it didn't look like an emergency situation. It didn't look like it, especially warranted, contacting the police. I don't know. We're not as, police calling happy, I guess, in Korea as perhaps, other parts of the world might be. So then there's a question about how accurate is their 4:40 a.m. estimate. So according to the fishermen, they said that one of the fishermen had taken a picture of the bridge and the river area at 4:33 a.m. Then he started smoking a cigarette and was there for about 5 minutes when he then started seeing the guy go into the water. And they're saying that the statements from all 7 are kind of match that timeline of 4:40 a.m. Can we prove that these fishermen were actually at the park? Well, according to the CCTV, they left the park at 5:12 a.m. Forensics and CCTV car black boxes confirmed that they went to the park, so they apparently were definitely there. I don't know exactly the fishing culture of people who fish at the Han River. Maybe they were doing it, I want to say before work. Maybe they work on the weekends, but this would have been a Saturday morning. But who fishes from like 4:40 a.m. to 5:12? That's like less than half an hour. Is that even enough time to like cast your rod and wait for something? I don't know. That sounds a little bit fishy to me. Usually when you go fishing, you have to, it's a sport of patience. Anytime I've gone fishing, you need hours, and then you have like all these other activities to fill the time because you can't program fish to come and bite. Maybe there's so much fish in the Han River that it just like comes out and you can be done in 30 minutes, but that also doesn't make sense to me. So I think it's a little bit weird to just go fishing for 30 minutes. So the police are going to reenact this eyewitness account. So they're going to go to the exact spot where the fishermen claim they were. See, 80 meters out, they're going to get somebody to pretend that they are the person walking into the water and see if they could actually hear splashing noises, hear somebody go and see if they can kind of recognize the gender of the figure going in. So they're going to reenact this to see that, whether it's plausible to get an accurate eyewitness account. So according to experts on how the Han River goes down in terms of its gradation, in terms of depth, it seems like it does make sense in terms of seeing a person walk and slowly have the water rise up to them, because apparently if you go into the river about 7 meters, the depth is 1.3 meters, and then at 12 meters out it's about 1.7 meters deep. So that makes sense in that sense. That's just one way to maybe confirm that they were probably telling the truth. But the thing that still sticks in my mind is half an hour for fishing. I mean, if you guys fish, and if I'm being like prejudiced or something where, I'm like, I don't know about this thing called express sport fishing, or maybe just like fishing for 30 minutes before work or something. 30 minutes? I don't get it, because we definitely know that they weren't hanging out there and then they left at 5:12. They got there. And then the guy was like smoking before getting, into fishing. Who fishes? I still don't know who fishes for 30 minutes. So how did Son Jung-min's father respond to the fisherman? Well, he said that he doesn't really believe it's likely that 7 fishermen would be there at the Han River in the morning at that time. He says he wants to confirm with GPS signaling to see if they were really there. And he said, okay, let's say that they were there. He says that it's absolutely preposterous that his son would ever want to go swimming in the Han River. He said at the very most, his son would go swimming with his swimsuit on only in a swimming pool, if that. He said that his son would never go swimming in nature, in open water, because he didn't like it. He didn't have the skill level. He said he never swam in the ocean and never swam in a river in his life. So it's a little bit strange to claim that his son would be the one that had gone into the river. In fact, in general, it's a little bit weird for anybody to go swimming in that river. At first, I thought these fishermen were quite credible, because there's 7 of them, and their story seems to check out. They're on CCTV camera. What they say seems to make sense. But first thinking about that, who fishes for only 30 minutes? Now, the other thing I think is very suspect about what they said was, they said it was normal for people to go swimming in the Han River. I have never heard of anybody who just goes swimming in the Han River. At the very most, you can sort of go swimming in the Han River if you've been wakeboarding, if you're jet skiing, if you're doing some sort of water sports and maybe you fall into the water, or you're just in the water briefly as part of the water sports. Actually, I don't even think you're allowed to go just hop into the river and start swimming. It's dangerous. There's a lot of you can get hurt by some of the water taxis and some of the ferries and drown. Are they gonna have to have lifeguards everywhere? So nobody goes, puts on their swimsuit, go to the river, and then just hops right in and just goes for a swim. So for the fishermen to say that is kind of didn't really catch them off guard, because they think that that's just a normal thing that they've seen, that is suspect too. So in a nutshell, you know how I thought that maybe the father was being overly dramatic and just really liked to talk in front of the media and stuff, but I do think he really does have a point here, that it is a bit odd that these fishermen are saying what they are saying, and it does behoove all of us to be skeptical of what they are saying, because essentially what they're doing is creating a very watertight alibi for Mr. A. And they're doing it in a way where it doesn't seem like it makes sense. However, when you really look at the other perspective, had Mr. A left and Son Jung-min was just hanging out around the area, it makes perfect sense in terms of the timeline for him to then wander into the water, perhaps. But at the same time, if he was only 10 meters away from where the guy was supposed to go into the water, how come he didn't see where Son Jung-min was? He was supposed, they were all like in the same area, so why did he not see him, or why would he not be able to notice his friend? Unless it's just like, they were just passing by. And why would somebody so afraid and somebody who does not like the water just walk into the water? Okay, let's say you even love the water. Let's say you even are obsessed with swimming and you are a daredevil. You still don't go into the Han River with all of your clothes and your shoes on at 4:30 in the morning. It's disgusting. No offense to the city of Seoul, but we all know that rivers in any kind of city, they just hide a multitude of sins. People just dump whatever they want into a river. So, and it's cold. It is cold. They say that the temperature, I think, during that day was 13 to 15 degrees Celsius. Who knows how cold it was in that morning. And then if you were in the water, it would have been much colder. It is not something that you just want to do. And especially if you hate the water, you do not just walk into the river. So again, if he was mind altered out of his mind on like LSD or something, and he was just like walking on water like Jesus, and then okay, fine, maybe I can understand like why he would maybe just walk into the water even though he hates the water. But other than that, it makes no sense. So either Son Jung-min just went crazy and walked into the water, or it was Mr. A with a different timeline. He walked into the water for some reason and walked back out, or the fisherman could be lying. Now, speaking of Mr. A, we do have now an official statement from him to see his side of the story, and especially in context to rebutting some of the suspicions that Son Jung-min's father has so clearly and so efficiently lobbed out into the public space with all of his media appearances. So 17 pages were submitted to authorities as a testimony, a written testimony through Mr. A's lawyer. There were 7 main suspicions that were cast into the public. So let's go over some of that right now by Son Jung-min's father. And they were answered by some of the content of the testimony. Number 1, why did Mr. A abruptly ask Son Jung-min to go drink on April 24th? Well, Mr. A said that he was drinking with other people and he just wanted to drink some more. And so he contacted Son Jung-min. He was drinking with other friends until 10 p.m. And then he contacted a bunch of people, and Son Jung-min replied and he said that, hey, why can't we just go over to your house, Son Jung-min's house, and drink there? Son Jung-min said, my parents were there, so my parents are here, so let's just go to the park. So according to Mr. A, this was all Son Jung-min's idea to go to the Riverside Park and to drink over there because it was near his house. Number 2, the father said, why didn't you contact me or my family when you went back to the park to go look for my son? So Mr. A's testimony said that, well, the family thought it would be very inappropriate to call so early in the morning, so they decided to go to the park to look for Son Jung-min first. And then Mr. A says he doesn't even remember calling his father at 3:37 a.m. So that he's trying to explain then why he wouldn't call also Son Jung-min's parents. The phone call with his father lasted 1 minute and 57 seconds. And then after Mr. A got home, they asked about Son Jung-min, and Mr. A said he didn't know where he was. So instead of bothering Son Jung-min's family, Mr. A's family decided, okay, we're just going to go to the park, look for Son Jung-min, and then after not being able to locate Son Jung-min, Mr. A's mother calls Son Jung-min's mother. And Son Jung-min's mother said, thank you for alerting us, and that they've alerted the police. And then at that point, they're like, okay, then let's just go home. 3. Why did Mr. A have Son Jung-min's phone? So Mr. A says he has absolutely no idea why he had SJM's phone. And he said that his mom found it in his jumper and then asked him about it. He said he was so drunk that he had no idea, didn't remember. Number 4, why did Mr. A's family throw away Mr. A's shoes? Mr. A's family said that Mr. A's shoes were so worn out, the soles were falling apart, plus there was vomit on the shoes, so the mother felt no concerns about throwing them away. 5. Why didn't Mr. A try to find his phone? Why did he just get a new phone right away? Does that mean he really knew that he would never find his phone? Mr. A said that he didn't completely change his number. He did not give up on looking for his phone. He just needed a number right away, so he got a temporary phone under his mother's account. Number 6, why did Mr. A take a lawyer to the hypnosis interrogation? Yes, we still do that here in Korea, apparently. Under hypnosis to try to remember what you can't remember. Mr. A's uncle is a lawyer, and he advised that it would help Mr. A's mental health if he had a lawyer present, so because there was so much suspicion directed at him that it would just make him feel more comfortable. Number 7, why did you guys come so late to the funeral? And why did you not offer any apology so far? Well, Mr. A's family went to the funeral pretty much at the last minute. In Korea, a funeral is essentially like an extended wake, especially at a hospital. And so you don't really go to the gravesite. That's usually only for family members. But over the course of probably about like 3 to 5 days, the family essentially just stays at the hospital in one of these like rooms, and then all the people who want to wish the family a bereavement would go and visit. And so towards basically the last day, last hour, apparently that's when Mr. A's family went, and they were like, geez, really? You came at the last minute? And Mr. A's family said that, well, we thought that it would be out of respect, because usually the most people go, usually towards the beginning of this time period is when most people go to a funeral. So they said like, oh, they wanted to go out of respect when not a lot of people were there, because they thought that that would be the most appropriate thing to do. So those were some of the rebuttals to the suspicions that the father has made that we were able to piece from the testimony of Mr. A. Now, netizens have also logged out into the public sphere a lot of their suspicions, and some of these questions are also answered by the testimony. So let's go over some of those. Number 1, it doesn't seem like Mr. A and SJM are all that close. Why did the two go drinking together? Well, apparently, according to Mr. A and SJM have gone out on multiple trips together, domestically and internationally, and they even have studied together in the library. So they were pretty close, and the studying together part, that was even from SJM's mother. Number 2, Mr. A seems to have influential family members who could be manipulating this case and help cover up any kind of indiscretions. Well, according to Mr. A's family and Mr. A, That is not the case at all. They say we don't know anyone related to the investigation. We have no ties to politicians. Mr. A's father's occupation, they say, does not involve contact with the powerful and influential. And Mr. A's mother has been a full-time housewife ever since she got married. 3. Why did it take so long for Mr. A to come forward with a public statement? Well, Mr. A and his family said that it would be inappropriate for them to act like the victims and to say that they felt a lot of injustice for being accused when they felt that the real victim of this case was SJM's family. So they say they were keeping quiet out of respect. They said that, they don't want to be the type of people to be like, oh, we're the victims, but, over there are the parents who actually lost their kids. So they said that, okay, well, we wanted to just, stay chill, stay calm, and, not be out there in the spotlight. All right, so how did SJM's father and mother respond to this? Now, this is a very interesting case. You know why? Because we have very immediate and public responses by the people involved in this case. So it keeps this story going pretty rapidly. It's almost as if it's definitely the media. It's definitely the social media age. Okay, so SJM's father's response. Well, he's a little bit sassy. You can tell that, he does not kind of try to hide or dance around the subject. Even his dancing around the subject, because to a certain extent in Korea, you have to seem like you are being polite. But these days, people are just kind of dancing a little bit just for the motions, and they're really just being really blunt, which is really refreshing, because we can it's easier for us to tell like what you're thinking. So what was SJM's father thinking? Well, he basically said that this is a 17-page testimony that only says, I was too drunk and I can't remember a thing. The shade. And then he says, well, if you really aren't connected to the rich and powerful, then I would be at ease. Yet you guys are so adamant in waiting for the police investigation to conclude, as if you know what the results were going to be. That sounds like such a great position to be in. So he's basically saying, like, look, we suspect that you know somebody on the police force. But even the police force people that were accused of being relatives to Mr. A even had to publicly come out and say, like, look, we are not related to this family. And even like the internet rumors said that it was like through the sister of the person who works at the police. That was really, he's like, no, I don't even have any sisters, I only have brothers. So even he had to respond. So there's a lot of fake news going out around the internet, and it's kind of feeding a lot of these rumors. But nonetheless, SJM's father is still doubtful, just like a lot of the people on the internet are. And then he said, you did not search for my son as a friend in earnest. Is that what a real friend would do? So again, he's basically calling into question the behavior of Mr. A and his family that morning when they went and searched for SJM, supposedly. And then the implication there is, did you really search for my son? Or did you go and try to gather all the evidence and hide it before anyone can see it, and then let us know, and then say, oh my God, your son is gone. Come out and search when there's nothing to look for? That's the suspicion. Okay, now what did the mother say? We've not heard from the mother. We've heard a lot from the father, like I said, but not from the mother. So SJM's mother said, Mr. A's mom and I are close enough where Mr. A's mom can call me at any time of the night, especially if it's an emergency. So this whole thing about they didn't want to wake them up, they didn't want to call them so early because they thought it would be rude and inappropriate. SJM's mom says that that's not the case. That seems a little suspicious because they're actually on terms where they can call each other at any time. Now, she is also very suspicious about what these parents were doing for 20 to 30 minutes at the Han River Park before they alerted anybody else, especially SJM's parents, to come to the park to go look for their missing son. So she says that I can only be suspicious because of that. Okay, so as you can see, there are two camps now forming in Korea, one on Mr. A's side and one on SJM's side. So the SJM faction is a lot louder. They're the ones doing a lot of the protests. They are gathering. They're coming up from all parts of Korea and they are demanding the truth. They're demanding justice. They believe that Mr. A has something to do with the death of SJM, and that the big issue is that they are pulling some shenanigans behind the scenes through connections and through unfair advantages in order to cover this up. On the other hand, you have on Mr. A's side people saying that, look, all you have is circumstantial evidence, and you are creating the profile of a murderer and just hoisting it upon an innocent boy. An innocent guy is now being publicly pilloried and shamed and labeled a murderer when he hasn't been charged and there's no direct evidence that he did anything wrong. And they're even saying that Mr. A's father can't properly go to work anymore because he's just involved in this whole incident that has inflamed the passions of the public. Now, I didn't realize how much this case would interest people legitimately around the world. I thought that maybe people might look at it and think that, wow, Korean people are being really like conspiracy theory or overly paranoid or overly pessimistic, but it doesn't seem like to be that case at all, because I think people do sense that something is a little bit weird about this. Now, even if Mr. A is totally innocent, and even if we are such bad people for being so suspicious and having made Mr. A go through all of this, the reason why there is so much chatter on the internet is that there's so much distrust. And this distrust is not the fault of the people. The distrust is because the institutions, the people in power have acted in ways that have betrayed that trust. So when I actually first came to Korea, I did think that people were overly paranoid and that they were so susceptible to gossip and, hearing just a rumor and going with it and not verifying any sources. Now, see, that's the thing that a little bit different in Korea is that the verifying source part is a little bit more limited because you're blocked more from information, and then also there is let's just say there's more mechanisms where people are shut up, where they don't talk. So back channeling for information, it becomes a lot more important in this society. And a byproduct of that, yes, is that there is bad information, there's false information, and that people believe in fake news. On the other hand, it is what it is. Because they can't get the truth up front, they have to go through back channels to get the real information. If you see the passion that these people have for this case, it, on the one hand, yes, it is about a missing college student and the tragedy of finding his dead body after floating around for 5 days in the Han River. But that honestly wouldn't be enough for all of these people to just stop what they're doing and come up to Seoul and picket and protest and spend all their time on the internet trying to figure out what's going on. What has really been sparked is really needing to support this line in the sand that we are not going to let another case of somebody getting away with murder. Literally in this case, if it is. Those people that are really passionate about this, you can tell, they've all had to sit and watch a grave injustice just pass by that they could do nothing about. And I think people are sick of that and they want to speak up and they want to try to change something, because that feeling is so common in Korea. It comes from a long legacy of being oppressed under monarchy, imperialism, dictatorship, authoritarianism, and then even now under power abuse dynamics. I think people really want to start leveling the playing field and not wanting it to be so easy for people to just get away with murder. At least murder. Let's start there. Let's just start with murder. And if you're thinking about like some of the resonant cases, yes, right now we are at the level of murder. The Jung-min case, the adopted baby that got killed by their abusive adopted parents, yes. Society does not want people to be able to get away with killing children. The Seoul ferry case. Society does not want people to get away with just killing a boatload of students. And I think there's something about this case where it's like, it can happen to anyone because it seems so relatable. It's so ordinary in the sense of like, they went to a convenience store just to buy very simple snacks and alcohol to just sit in a park on the grass to enjoy the evening, and then somebody ends up dead. That's all the information I have right now, and if any more updates come up, I'll make another video. Stay safe out there, guys. Bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.